What are the three words that I hear most often when people start to uncover hidden fears keeping them stuck? The ones that I'm familiar with because I've said them too. The words I want you to recognize so that you can catch yourself the next time you say them. So, what are they? It's so silly. I have heard this exact statement from so many people that I've worked with over the years, and I've used them myself. And they might sound harmless, but they can actually have a big impact on your ability to make lasting change. And that's why we're talking about it today. Now, I'm going to give you a personal example. Now, back in 2012, I was completing a 3-day training to learn how to help people uncover why they're struggling to change despite genuinely wanting to. And as part of the training, each day we had to explore a new challenge of our own in order to learn how to do this. I decided to take a look at my ongoing struggle in my personal life, which was why, as a lactose intolerant individual, I could not seem to stay away from dairy. Now, on the surface, I know that that might seem like an unimportant thing to explore, but it was actually causing me physical discomfort and pain. And it's something that had confused me for a long time. I know this about myself. Why can't I seem to change? So, as I worked through the process, I realized I had a few different fears. And one of them was that I didn't want to be difficult. That person at the restaurant who is peppering the server with questions about the menu items, or the friend who's invited to dinner and lets the host know, I can't eat dairy. This dreaded image that I had of being this pain in the butt guest or person at a restaurant, it was causing problems for me. And I said those three words. It's so silly. I was just really downplaying the effect it was having on me. Why am I scared of asking questions to a server? Or why am I scared of telling a host if I'm going over to their house that I don't eat dairy? Like on the surface, it seemed really trivial and really kind of surface. And so I downplayed it and thought this is silly. And in the years since, I've worked with a lot of people who said those exact same words once they start to uncover some of the things that are holding them back, especially if they seem inconsequential on the surface. But that's the thing. They're not inconsequential. In fact, these fears that we downplay as silly are still having an impact on us. Even a silly fear can hold us back from taking action, from changing and making lasting change. So, whenever I hear somebody downplay a fear, I try to gently push back, to ask them to give it the weight it deserves, because no matter what or how you label it, it's still getting in the way. It's one of the reasons that you're avoiding change, and it deserves your attention. Because the only way that you can break free from these assumptions and these fears is to actively challenge that, challenge the belief that's behind the fear. It's pushing back against the assumption that asking a server about menu items and whether or not they have dairy means I'm difficult, or telling a host that I have a dietary restriction means I'm a difficult guest. If I never challenge those unconscious assumptions, I'll continue to hesitate, hold myself back, try not to be that person, and stay stuck. And if I label the fear as simply silly, I'm just not giving it the attention that it honestly deserves. So now instead, I start to see this as an invitation to shift my perspective. And ultimately, when we surface a fear or a belief that seems silly or trivial, it's usually because you can already start to poke holes in it. You can see that it's not completely valid and immediately think, oh, this shouldn't have much control over what I do or don't do. It's actually a good sign because you're already starting to challenge its validity, the validity of this assumption or belief you're holding. But the danger comes when you start to assume that labeling it as silly is enough. It's not enough. You might still be limited by it until you properly challenge and then release yourself from this belief. So, what does this actually look like? It means that you are learning through firsthand experience. It's about actively challenging these beliefs in real life. And if we take the dairy example, now the initial challenge might come just from checking my biases, looking at evidence that maybe contradicts my belief or assumption that speaking up makes a person difficult. Are there times where I've asked questions and been answered politely by a server? Or have I been with others at restaurants or at events where they have dietary allergies or restrictions? Did I label them as being difficult? If I've invited friends over to my house and they have restrictions, how did I react to them? And in reality, I was happy to accommodate them because they're my friends and I care about them and I would never want them to not be able to enjoy themselves. So that's a good start, is checking these biases and looking for evidence. But then you need to also start experiencing it firsthand in order for your brain to change and say, okay, it's safe to change. So going to a restaurant, asking questions if I need to clarify something, going to a friend's house, maybe sharing in advance, and offering to bring a dairy-free dish. Paying attention to what happens when I actually speak up for what I need and seeing, is this okay? Are people perceiving me as difficult or not? Because the more I do it, the more I learn that my assumption is not valid. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to get the occasional eye roll from a rude server, but I realize that they are the exception. And eventually, I became released from that limiting beliefs. And I can speak up in restaurants, I can state my needs, and I know that it doesn't make me a difficult person. But back then, I absolutely believed that. So, this fear of being the difficult friend, the difficult guest, it needed my attention in order for me to get past it. And if I just laughed it off and not taken it seriously, I'd probably still be limited by its power. I would hesitate to speak up because I was afraid of being that dreaded person. Now, if you're wondering, okay, Kat, how can I use this information? Let's start with the first step, which is before you can be released from a fear or a limiting belief, you need to uncover it. And to do that, I want you to imagine doing the thing you've been avoiding. So if I imagine speaking up in a restaurant or telling a host, what do I picture? What are the worries that emerge when I think about it? So when you picture doing the thing you've been avoiding or hesitating, what are the worries that come up? And if it's not coming up right away, give it a little bit of time. Sometimes it takes a little bit to tap into it. Now, I'll share some common worries that I have learned over the years working with people on these. So if I actually do the thing, maybe I'll make a mistake. Maybe I'll look stupid. Maybe I'll annoy others. Maybe I'll annoy myself. Maybe I'll feel trapped. I won't feel in control. Maybe I'll be in over my head. Maybe I'll look selfish. And then ask yourself why you have this worry. What assumptions do you have that cause you to have these worries? So let's take the example of somebody who wants to start going to the gym 3 times a week. They have a family and they're worried that going to the gym regularly by themselves means that they're going to look selfish, spending this time on themselves and away from family. They realize that they have this belief that spending time away on their own pursuits is selfish. Now, it's possible that once they say it out loud, they might think, oh, it's so silly. Taking care of your health is important. That's true. But as long as there is this underlying assumption that taking the time away from your family to prioritize your health means that you're being selfish, it's still going to stop them and get in the way. The belief is not silly. It's actually having a real impact. And the next step is to challenge the belief, to really pay attention to what happens when you do take some time to focus on your own health. So maybe you start small with fewer sessions and just notice what happens. How do people around you react? And having conversations with your family instead of just assuming you know what they think about you and your decisions. Maybe you start to notice that taking better care of your health means that you're more present and engaged when you're with your family. And maybe over time, you can start to really feel released from these fears because you've intentionally challenged them and these assumptions that are behind them. It only happens when you give your fears the attention they deserve instead of diminishing, downplaying them. When you respect the true impact of your beliefs and your assumptions and the impact they're having on your ability to create lasting change, and when you start to take them seriously, then you can start to free yourself from them. Now, speaking of challenging assumptions, in the past few episodes, I have shared a little bit about my personal journey, my experiment on creating a more consistent workout routine and strength routine in particular. I've also shared that I am injured and working with professionals to look a little bit more into whether or not I might have a diagnosis about my connective tissue. Now, I was actually able earlier this week to meet with a specialist who works on joints and knows about these conditions. And while they weren't able to 100% confirm whether or not I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is one of the possibilities, they did confirm that I do have hypermobility spectrum disorder, where my hypermobile joints and this laxity and my connective tissue do cause me to be more injured, to be in more pain than other people, etc. Now, when I was talking with them about how I manage things, it became very clear that this is the type of thing where I can't change my connective tissue, I can't change my genes, but I can find ways to manage. It's really about lifestyle choices. And having the diagnosis or knowing this about myself does mean that treatment plans, working with physical therapists, etc., helps. But one of the assumptions I realized I was having, and one that's been holding me back, is that earlier in 2025, I did actually seek out and purchase a plan for people who are hypermobile and who deal with regular pain because of their hypermobility. I did the program for, I want to say 6 to 8 weeks, and just thought to myself, this doesn't feel like a lot. It was foundational and it didn't hurt. I wasn't in pain, but it did feel like I don't know that this program is having an impact. I'm not sure this is actually helping me because they were sort of small, deliberate motions. And I think that I have, as I look back, I have this connection between what I think is effective and what this program was. And I think I was downplaying its impact. And so one of the things that I plan to do, and I'll probably kind of close the chapter for a little while on sharing about this experiment, is to start that program over again from scratch and to just do that properly, pay attention to what happens, and challenge this belief that it needs to be more, I need to be moving more, I need to have a plan or program that's just, I guess, more. I know that that sounds silly, but it'd be the equivalent of, okay, if I'm only doing these exercises and I'm not using strong weights, is this really going to help me with my strength? But I actually think it was helping. And so that's one of the things that I am going to focus on before. But it's only when you actually uncover these assumptions and these beliefs that are causing you to hesitate, causing you to hold back, that you can really start to challenge them. But challenging these with real experiences and paying attention to what's going around with you, that's the only way to break past them and to not let them stop you so that you can start to find and keep your momentum.